Salvian took cold by walking in the city to the north wind, and he fell seriously ill. In order to heal before the departure of Aetius, he asked the owner of the apartment to bring the best doctor of his acquaintance. It is Eudoxus, a young Greek. After a few visits from the doctor, Salvian feels better and they start talking about different subjects. The officer appreciates that Eudoxus is well educated, eloquent and sincere. The doctor loves his patient's soldierly righteousness and is interested in the accounts of his trip to Hunland. I did not know that Attila speaks and reads Greek, and that he has a Greek scholar in his suite. You say that the ambassador of Rome went to the service of the Huns. Orestes wants to help Attila to build a Pax Hunna Romana, and thus save the Roman civilization. I have been in Gaul for 4 years. Before, for a few years, I lived in Rome. I know that noble family, proud and rich. Rome go really bad if people so proud have accepted that their children leave for a country that is, according to them, very barbaric. Eudoxus reflects for a moment and asks, you say the Huns do not pay taxes. But all men are warriors subjected to strict discipline and obliged to be at the disposal of their chiefs at the order of the Khan. All these cavalrymen were armed and armored at their own expense. And the vassal peoples, the farmers and herders, pay 1/10 of their crop or livestock. Those who are mobilized in the Hun armies do not pay taxes, as well as the priests of all religions. Interesting. Perhaps the rich relatives of Orestes want to hide part of their income in Hunland from the Roman tax authorities? Surprised by this unexpected assumption for him, Salvian involuntarily makes a grimace of surprise, then shrugs. In fact, why not? Maybe the doctor is right. Agitated by the interesting conversation, Eudoxus begins to speak faster. As far as the Pax Hunna Romana is concerned, I would like to discuss this question with Attila because, in reality, Gaul has never known Pax Romana. The Roman is sincerely surprised. What are you saying? The doctor begins the demonstration of his affirmation. Let us say that Gaul almost never experienced true peace. As a soldier, you are well acquainted with the history of Caesar's conquest of Gaul. He devoted many years to this task and massacred many people. But after his death, the struggle continued. And 20 years after the triumph of Caesar, the Romans celebrated the triumph of Agrippa, the new victor of Gaul. The country seemed pacified. New Gallics who obtained Roman citizenship and occupied important posts appeared. But 46 years later, the Gallic officers of the Roman army and certain tribes organized an insurrection. Still another 40 years, and Governor Vindex, a new Gallic, is leading a new insurrection, which is transformed into a long and bloody civil war. More than 400,000 warriors fight against each other in Gaul at that time. Then it was the proclamation of the First Gallic Empire. It is true that Gaul knows about a century of peace. The Emperor Trajan, a Spanish, who is therefore a national of a province, reorganizes the relations between the imperial center and the provinces. It is peace, but not Pax Romana. It is Pax Galla Romana. This period ends with a new series of civil wars and the proclamation of the Second Gallic Empire. The Emperor Aurelian convinces the Gallic Emperor Tetricus to surrender. The Gaulish surrender is worthy and the country returns to the bosom of the Roman Empire. But a few years before this event began the movement of the Bigaudis, insurgent peasants, which until now practically continues without interruption for 2 centuries. You cannot, of course, tell me that it is the Pax Romana that reigns today in Gaul. Embarrassed, Salvian scratches his neck. He remembers Constantine and Maxim, the last 2 emperors of Gaul. but it was always suggested that Rome brought civilization and order into Gaul. He suddenly experiences a violent hatred against these Gauls who do not know how to live in peace and quietly enjoy the fruits of civilization. But this rage, he does not know why, goes fast. When Eudoxus comes to see his patient again, the officer is so well restored that he is ready for a long discussion. Do you think that Attila is able to maintain first the Pax Hunna, of the Danube to Siberia, and then to realize the Pax Hunna Romana? Salvian sees that the doctor is also ready for a sincere discussion. I'm starting from a distance. Every individual tries to improve the quality of their life. But it is understood in a very different way. Each has its own criteria in order to evaluate its quality of life. For example, Eudoxus bends a finger with his left hand, the state of health. He continues the enumeration, folding the other fingers, the level of security, political stability, the quality of the environment, the material wealth of the person in question. The doctor now holds his left hand in a fist and continues the enumeration with the fingers of his right hand, the spiritual wealth, the prestige, the degree of satisfaction of his situation. And so on. He looks at Salvian. The Romans place material wealth above all other values. They appreciate an individual according to his purse and the quantity of his slaves. The social hierarchy is based on wealth. The wealthiest become senators, the rich are admitted into the class of knights. The officer remarks, the first Romans were warriors and peasants. He remembers the conversation on the ambassadors of Carthage, who saw the same service of silver dishes in all the noble Roman families visited. They worked hard, despised luxury, could take care of state affairs, save the country, and then return to plough their land. Salvian looks Eudoxus with challenge, the love of luxury, of pleasure, and of the pleasures of the senses has come to Rome from Greece. Traditional morality has been destroyed by the doctrines of Epicurus and other Greek philosophers. The doctor smiles. Epicure's ideas on the pursuit of happiness and pleasure were used to justify the way of life of the new generations of the great capital, cut off from productive labor and land. But Epicurus himself was against superfluous and unnatural pleasures. He placed pleasure in the cultivation of the mind and the practice of virtue. He said that he had great pleasure even if he ate nothing but bread and water. Let us not forget that Greece is also the homeland of Stoicism. Our philosophers always put spiritual wealth above all other values. Let us now return to Attila. The Huns have succeeded in turning the war into an activity which is not very dangerous for them. The majority of warriors harass their enemies with archery and avoid direct contact. The knights, specialists of the close battle, are well armored and fight only with an opponent already tired and unbalanced. The Huns are the children of nature. They breathe the fresh air of the steppes and mountains. While the majority of the Romans are piled up in polluted cities, mostly in multi-story buildings, surrounded on all sides by the apartments, the prestige of the Huns is based on honor and courage. Therefore, they need material wealth only to have beautiful clothes, mounts, armor and weapons. You say that their social hierarchy is based on competencies. Princes are numerous. Only the most gifted are selected by kings as candidates for the succession of power. Thus Attila was chosen by King Oros, who gave him a traditional and Greco-Roman education. The young prince then showed, through his actions towards all the tribes, his capacities to govern, and thus confirmed his rights to succession and power. I think that Attila is able to keep the Pax Hunna, from the Danube to Siberia. If the Huns had no such a leader, I would be less sure of the possibility of peace. The existence of the interesting experiment of the tabgatchers shows unequivocally the possibility of the Pax Hunna Romana. But apart from wealth, the Romans respect only strength. Therefore, the Huns must break their nose in order to conclude an alliance, saving for Rome herself. Salvian notes sadly, "It's hard, but I think we can avoid war. Let us suppose that Aetius one day becomes the commander-in-chief of the Roman army. Then Attila could sign a treaty of alliance with his childhood friend." Eudoxus laughs. Aetius is a wise courtier rather than a general. It is said that he even exaggerated the number of Huns mercenaries in 425, in order to provoke more fear among the Romans and to appropriate some of their remuneration obtained from Galla Placidia. It was possible. Saddened, Salvian says in a somewhat trembling voice, "I hope Valentinian will be a good emperor and save the empire." Eudoxus answers in a tired voice, "The crisis is too deep. It seems to me that the Huns should not look for allies among corrupt high officials, but among people with a similar mentality to them, like you and me, as well as among the peasants and artisans of the territories liberated by the Bigaudis." Shocked deeply, the officer trembles with indignation and looks at Eudoxus, "Me, you, and the insurgents." The doctor explains, "I feel new hopes after our discussions. Aristotle said that everyone should do what best corresponds to his soul, which he is able to do well and with the greatest success. I am a doctor and have a job that is useful to all." The peasants of an important part of Gaul stopped paying unjust taxes and the Roman administration considers them insurgents. But, mostly, they are great workers, who like to work and live in nature. I also feel more comfortable with them. Many of them are breeders like the Huns. They are now obliged to devote a great deal of energy, means and time to their defense. They would be willing to pay fair taxes, for example, 1/10 of their income in exchange for security assurances and a fair order. You are a professional warrior and understand that only well-trained cavalry detachments can respond quickly and successfully to serious dangers, ensure the safety of the population and keep the peace. The Roman and German infantry could keep the border fortresses and coordinate their actions with the cavalry in case of aggression. We could apply certain political ideas of Aristotle. Perhaps, too, I will meet Attila one day, but in the years to come, I plan to travel a great deal in Gaul, to study the life of all sections of the population, and even to live among the insurgent peasants. I want to think and act against a dangerous anarchy who can settle on the ruins of the Roman Empire.